Hello, and welcome to another episode of the ohmTown Daily News Show. I'm Mayor Watt. That's my site. I go through about 20 articles in this hour. Hope to talk to you here in Twitch chat. After some time, I also post this over to YouTube and to the podcast ohmTown. So if you open up Apple Podcasts or if you follow the links, you can actually listen to the podcast as well if you don't have time to make it to the Twitch chat. So, of course, if you're in my chat right now, then thank you very much for coming. Be sure to follow. I'm at about 50% of my follower goal, but it's been kind of sitting there for a while now. I don't really run around and tell people about the site. I don't run around and tell people about the chat, me being on Twitch. I hope that it will happen organically. But yesterday was my 80th show, and I hope word gets out that I do this without me, running around and kind of invading other people's space. And every once in a while, somebody asks me who I am when I'm in their chat. What am I the mayor of? And that's when I tell them that I'm the mayor of ohmTown, that site right there. So what is ohmTown? ohmTown.com is a news aggregation site, and it aggregates news from around the internet into 6 categories: create, news, education, entertainment, social, and technology. I add stuff, sources, and I take them away depending on the integrity of the feed. Kind of when my crawler goes out and finds these articles, sometimes the content is questionable, so I reevaluate what information comes into the site. I don't really want too much of any one thing because I have a very broad range of interests. And the reason why ohmTown even exists is because I was personally interested in all of these topics. So those 6 topics that I mentioned were actually just the tip of the iceberg, so to speak, because within each of those topics, I have 50 channels that I want to bring as individual shows over to Twitch. And the way that it works is all of that news just gets funneled in there kind of auto-magically, and then I grab a selection of headlines and then I talk about them for this 1 hour period. Easily digestible. I provide the links in the chat and or in the descriptions of either the YouTube channel and the podcast. So stick around. If you have questions or comments, feel free to throw them in my chat or make comments on the YouTube channel, or even respond to the evaluation, the reading and review portion of the podcast. I'm interested in what people have to say about the show and what I can change, make it better. And I'm never really, I might take it personally. It depends on what it is, but hopefully people find this of value. And with that in mind, let's just go on to the next portion of this little show, which is the headlines. So the very first article that I found while I was going through the news was this little $450 million fund. Bored Ape Yacht Club creator raises $450 million to build an NFT metaverse. Yuga Labs, the owner of 3 of the biggest NFT brands on the market, has raised $450 million in funding at a $4 billion valuation, the company announced Tuesday. The team behind Bored Ape Yacht Club plans to use the money to build a media empire around NFTs, starting with games and its own metaverse project. The team describes its metaverse project, called Other Side, as an MMORPG meant to connect the broader NFT universe. They hope to create, quote, an interoperable world, end quote, and then they throw quotes around like I'm almost like weapons. That is gamified and completely decentralized, says Wiley Aronow, a co-founder of Bored Ape Yacht Club. So let's click this link. It takes us over to The Verge. This article is written by Jacob Kastranakis, I guess is pronounced properly. My my rationale for clicking this link, for following this headline earlier, for deciding to include it, was that it came out of the blue at a $4 billion valuation. For me, NFTs are really powered by FOMO, largely like crypto. There's a lot of stuff involved with crypto, right? But the valuation of crypto is pegged to the US dollar. If something happens with US politics, if something happens with the US economy, like many currencies, Bitcoin is impacted, but you don't ask what a Bitcoin is worth in Bitcoin. You ask what a Bitcoin is worth in a standard fiduciary element. You don't go to buy dinner and say, hey, this is going to cost 0.00001 Bitcoin. You say it's going to cost $60. And then you go and find out that Bitcoin today happens to be $60,000 a Bitcoin. But then again, adoption of those Bitcoins, I can't pay with Bitcoin everywhere. I can with US dollars. So translate that into NFT and you have the same type of thing. Early adopters with means, or people who are willing to take a risk, and you have FOMO, fear of missing out. So people are chasing after the dollars of NFTs. And some people have the ability to take advantage of it and others don't. And some have the knowledge to take advantage of it and some don't. And that's just what I see with NFTs. I've looked at the whole mechanism around NFTs and going to OceanSea, and it's still abstract for the end user to even comprehend what an NFT is, let alone actually exploit it in some way. But then on the other side, there are some brilliant people out there that are definitely making some serious change on NFTs. Create some art, throw some money at it for a little bit so that it can be listed, and away you go. It says here, the team describes its metaverse project called Other Side as an MMORPG. How so? I guess we'll find out. We're going to have to follow this. I'm sure that it'll grab some headlines. Metaverse projects are all the rage right now, but Yuga Labs thinks other companies are going about their metaverse ideas wrong, giving the startup a chance to stand out. And I think Facebook naming itself Meta just kind of confuses the whole concept of metaverse. And I think metaverse in and of itself is kind of an odd name to name whatever the metaverse actually is going to end up being. Let's see. But the company has built fairly little at this point. Its NFT collections have 40,000 users at most, according to OpenSea's data, and the company has only released one game for a limited period of time. That means Yuga Labs is essentially being given hundreds of millions of dollars to build a gaming company, or at least the Web3ified 2022 version of one from scratch, off the back of a hugely lucrative art project. Yes. But again, this is the fear of missing out. Let me scroll back up to the top here, and you can go over to The Verge and check out the Bored Ape Yacht Club creator raises $450 million to build an NFT metaverse. So let's go on to the next article. This next article is in the Mobile channel. an expert on trends in gun sales and gun violence in pandemic America. So I was curious about this because of the context of two of the things that are really kind of contentious in the United States. My particular take on it is regarding the pandemic: wear a mask, get the vaccine. As for gun sales and gun violence, I think an armed population is fine as long as they are level-headed and situationally aware and they understand safety and protocol. Fine. As for gun violence, I think it's a shame, but criminals don't follow the law. They don't care about rules and regulations. If they have access to guns and it isn't monitored in a realistic way, they'll use them. And sometimes humans break. And if they've got a tool like a gun, they might use it. But this says gun sales have risen in recent years, particularly during the COVID-19 pandemic. On February 28th, 2022, Sciline interviewed Garen Wintermute, an emergency medicine physician at the University of California Davis Medical Center and director of the California Firearm Violence Research Center, about what's driving this change and what gun usage and culture looks like in America 2 years into the pandemic. Curious, right? Wouldn't you be curious about why this is? You may not be, but the reason why I put a lot of this together and stuff that I have done in the past is to challenge preconceived notions about a person's place in society and in the world, from individual in the microcosm that they exist in to the planet, where you exist in the entire world. If you're not introduced to things that you're not already familiar with, then you don't go beyond your comfort zone. This article over at phys.org is written by Garen Wintermute, and it's a subsection of an article of a section somewhere called The Conversation. I've never seen it, but that's not quite true. I've heard of The Conversation, but I've never been to the site as far as I recall. Anyway, it says The Conversation collaborated with Sciline to bring you the highlights from the discussion, which have been edited for brevity and clarity. And they ask a bunch of questions. What does the research tell us about who owns guns in the United States and why? And because they're a gun expert, they're being kind of grilled about what this is. But it's in a scientific guided website called phys.org. So you would think that it's a little bit more even-keeled and not hyperbolic, but you'll have to go and read the rest of the article. I will just mention here that it says, Garen Wintermute says, the traditional population of gun owners are white, non-Hispanic men, but for several years, the demographic profile of gun owners in the United States has been broadening as women and members of underrepresented groups start purchasing firearms, and people buy more guns for protection than for all other reasons put together. Well, that is the actual reason why we would put down for why we're purchasing a gun. Very few of us will say, oh, well, I'm just purchasing it because it's fun to shoot at the range. Because at the core of it, you don't necessarily buy just for shooting at the range. You train at the range and you bring it home and you use it for protection. It's a byproduct that it's also fun to shoot at a range, right? But you're drilled into your head again and again and again, don't point a firearm at anything you don't want to destroy. It isn't the purpose of a weapon is not to tickle. So go over to phys.org and get another perspective on things from someone who is a subject matter expert in the research, at least. An expert on trends in gun sales and gun violence in pandemic America. And let's continue on to the next article. This next article is in the Daily News Show, which is this show. All the other channels that I mentioned are intended to be brought as an individual show over to Twitch. So when I mention Mobile, it intends to be its own show. When I mention the Word in Tech, it's a channel that I hope to bring as an element of ohmTown over to Twitch. So this is another one of these contentious discussion points in the current timeline. If you want to refer to where we are in a Marvel Cinematic Universe kind of a way. I never thought that I would have a conversation about this and actually have it a possibility, a real possibility, because someone is off the rails, I guess I'll put it that way. Anyway, this headline is any use of tactical nukes denounced as, and they have it edited. It says bat bleeping insane. I can't say it because my podcast is tagged as clean, and yeah, it has a couple of cuss words in it. But if escalate, and the little snippet that my aggregator grabbed was, if escalation led to a massive exchange of nuclear weapons, warned one expert, the world would experience a catastrophe of immeasurable proportions. Well, that isn't just a duh kind of a statement, but let's continue on. This is a commondreams.org article. I love their headlines. They're sometimes hyperbolic, at least in my perception. This article is written by Jake Johnson, and saying that it's a catastrophe of immeasurable proportions. Yeah, I mean, it's of nuclear proportions. It's of global destruction kind of a thing. It's a human a human-born disaster built on political and power struggles, instead of seeing each other as human beings and exploiting the technology we have at our disposal to benefit everybody. If only people would see we're all the same genetics, instead of looking at those genetics and going, oh, look, a subtle difference because you're born in a geopolitically derived country. We're all the same genetic code in different ways. We're just four things slapped together in different ways. And we work so hard to delete each other. It's sociopathic. It's insane. Just thinking about it is. But it says the new flurry of reaction was prompted by a New York Times story examining the potential catastrophic implications of an exchange of smaller nuclear weapons, which both the U.S. and Russia possess in terrifying quantities. And that's kind of the reason why I brought this up. They're talking about tactical nukes, which are smaller yield nuclear weapons. The problem here is that it's never isolated. You know, even if you were to get away with a tactical nuke strike, the impact on the world is catastrophic from just the one. I mean, the U.S. dropped 2 bombs on Japan to stop, in the experts' estimation, a protracted, long, bloody war. And it shut down pretty much conflict altogether. But we've never been the same since. And the only thing that has happened from that is an exchange of processes and subject matter experts into Japan, to the point where Japan has now become kind of, I guess, rebounded in a weird sort of way, because it's not really true. You just don't know what Japan would have been if, we didn't drop 2 bombs. But as it stands, they're a rather juggernaut country, and admirable to return from something like this. If anybody were to drop a bomb now, it would be economic destruction as well as physical destruction, the loss of life. It would build a world of uncertainty for everybody. And it's twisted that this stuff even exists still. But I know that there's some warmonger out there that is sitting there saying, well, weapons that don't get used are useless weapons. I agree. So get rid of them. Don't use them. If everybody is afraid of using the weapons, get rid of those weapons. If everybody agrees that they're useless, get rid of them. If all they're doing is holding off each other from actually firing any of them, everybody get rid of them. But we won't see past it. So all of these people sitting here doing simulation after simulation to see what would happen, it's it's so animal, it's so tribal, it's disconnected from humanity. But I will be called naive. I have before. So I'm going to continue on before I get bogged down into this one topic, and kind of change tack a little bit. This next article is about Core Keeper, which is a game. Some people might say that thermonuclear war is a game as well, but nobody wins. The channel here is Warcrafters, and the article that was aggregated into it is Core Keeper Boss Guide: How to Find and Beat Every Giant Monster. If you've never played Core Keeper, it's an early access Steam game, reasonably priced, and massive. So the world is massive. You can consider it an isometric version of Terraria, if you want to envision that. But it has base building, it has mobs, it's co-op, and up to 8 people can play it simultaneously. It has just a bunch of things in it that I find very enjoyable to play. I would like to be able to stream it, but I never have enough time to stream a game yet on a game streaming site like Twitch. I talk about the news and I don't stream games, but I talk about the games. And I'd like to expand this to 2 or 3 hours, but we will see. Different sections, starting with the daily news show. So this article takes you over to PC Gamer, and this article is written by Christopher Livingston, which is an awesome name. Core Keeper bosses: the best way to beat Glurch, Gorm, the Hive Mother, Azeos, Malugaz, and Ivy. And I've never even seen Ivy. So the first 3 bosses I've seen. I've seen Azeos. I believe I've seen Malagaz. I've never seen Ivy. Yeah, it might be because it says it's optional. Malagaz the Corrupted. Okay, yeah, I have seen Malagaz, but I haven't seen Ivy the Poisonous Mass. Anyway, go over to PC Gamer and check it out. Core Keeper Boss Guide. You'll be able to find it there, or you can follow the link on ohmTown. It'll take you over there. The next article is in the Warcrafters channel, and it's about CD Projekt Red, who's chasing after Witcher with Unreal Engine 5. It says CD Projekt says new Unreal Engine 5 Witcher game won't be exclusive to one storefront. And this was a surprise announcement. They've kind of taken it on the chin from Cyberpunk 2077 with promises that many gamers say are still unmet. I give them the benefit of the doubt that they'll continue to enhance Cyberpunk 2077, but Witcher is what has brewed their following to a crescendo before it kind of collapsed around Cyberpunk 2077. So I can see why they would want to follow that storyline again. So it says here, the biggest surprise of today's Witcher 4 announcement, that's just what the publisher is calling it until it has an actual title, is not that it's happening. Of course it's happening, but that CD Projekt is switching from its in-house development Red Engine to Unreal Engine 5. Well, I've seen Unreal Engine 5 in action, and I'd say that being able to utilize the tools that somebody else is putting together as an engine allows them to go outside their wheelhouse and kind of exploit a broader range of skill sets and things that maybe aren't at their immediate disposal. It's kind of the way that I see it is, if people could take advantage of things like predictive enhancements to mobs and basically artificial intelligence and machine learning tools, as well as the rendering engine within Unreal Engine 5, games would be better. Simulations would be better. So let's see what else it says here. The partnership covers not only licensing, but technical development of Unreal Engine 5, as well as potential future versions of Unreal Engine where relevant. CD Projekt said, will closely collaborate with Epic Games developers with the primary goal of being to help tailor the engine for open world experiences. And that's one of the things that Unreal Engine is hyping quite loudly, which is just how how expansive its rendering as an open world experience can be. And if you've ever looked into Unreal Engine 5, there are videos that basically are kind of technology showcases of what's possible with Unreal Engine 5. So go and check it out. But I'm going to click this link and it'll take us over to PC Gamer. Andy Chalk is the author of this article. And it says, it's a major change for the studio, which has previously used its own Red Engine on everything from Witcher 2 to Cyberpunk 2077. I think switching Cyberpunk 2077 over to Unreal Engine would be a boon for CD Projekt, although a feather kind of gets pulled out of their cap because it isn't their own engine. But their customizations and tweaks to Unreal would be a benefit, I'm sure. Give it their own flavor. Cyberpunk's 2077's many technical issues are the most immediately obvious probable reason for the switch to new technology, and don't forget that The Witcher 3 wasn't exactly in pristine condition at launch either. Yeah, and that comes up when you have discussions about CD Projekt. But they made good on Witcher 3. Not so much on Cyberpunk 2077. All that said, go over to PC Gamer and do a search for CD Projekt says new Unreal Engine 5 Witcher game won't be exclusive to one storefront. And I'll tell you what, I think most people are going to be buying it on Steam unless it lands in a like PlayStation Store or something. This next article is in The Word in Tech, and it's more along the lines of a cybersecurity article. Okta hack puts thousands of businesses on high alert. Okta is an authentication company used by thousands of organizations around the world. Has now confirmed an attacker had access to one of its employees' laptops for 5 days in January of 2022, but claims its service has not been breached and remains fully operational. The disclosure comes as hacking group Lapsus, with a $sign at the end, has posted screenshots to its Telegram channel claiming to be of Okta's internal systems, including one that appears to show Okta's Slack channels and another with a Cloudflare interface. Any hack of Okta, Okta, could have major ramifications for the companies, universities, and government agencies that depend on its technology. We'll click this link and take you over to The Verge. It's an article written by John Porter. Okta lists Peloton, Sonos, T-Mobile, and the FCC among its 15,000 customers. Yeah. Let's see if there's anything in particular in here in this statement. Here's what Okta Chief Security Officer David Bradbury says is and isn't at stake when one of its support engineers is compromised. Quote, the potential impact of Okta customers is limited to the access that support engineers have. These engineers are unable to create or delete users or download customer databases. Support engineers do have access to limited data, for example, Jira tickets and lists of users that were seen in the screenshots. Support engineers are also able to facilitate the resetting of passwords in MFA, multi-factor authentication factors, for users, but are unable to obtain those passwords. It depends on what they have the ability to reset. So it says, writing in its Telegram channel, the Lapsus hacking group claims to have had super user / admin access to Okta's systems for 2 months, not just 5 days, and it had access to a thin client rather than a laptop, and claims that it found Okta storing AWS keys in Slack channels. Well, if it quacks like a duck, they must not have done anything destructive. At least nothing that we know of yet. But hopefully they don't do anything destructive and something good comes out of this. So we'll have to monitor this. This is a brand new article. I'm not sure how long this has been idling in the underground space of discussions. But let's continue on. The next article is in the Stock Marketeers channel. Pardon me. So, sustainable investing. Water is plentiful, but ways to invest are scarce. Here's how to make money. It says Tuesday is World Water Day. And water could be the next focus for ESG investing. So let's click this link. It takes us over to Market Watch. The article is written by Debbie Carlson. It has a picture of Earth kind of sitting on maybe a shallow lake bed. I'm not sure what it is. Doesn't quite look like an ocean. But anyway, like all Market Watch articles, they have reference symbols that are integrated throughout the article. But it says here, thanks to climate change, the next forefront of environmental, social, and governance investing could be water, which I think is just, look, I understand that people want to make money, but making water something of a commodity to trade on is disgusting to me as a human being. We should be trading on the technology. We should be making all of that cheaper, more reliable, more efficient, more effective, overall more capable, right? Make money from that. But water itself, it's a disgusting concept to me. Trade on the companies that are buying and selling water, sure. But even that is troubling because water is a natural resource, and even if it's manufactured, then it's that water that is manufactured, right? You ionize some water and you pull the salt out of it, and you have clean water, or you do it distillation in some other way and get the water out of it. My problem is thinking that water is something to trade as value. I mean, it's so dystopian to me. But It says it won't be easy. Water is a fragmented market and is highly regulated by municipalities, agriculture, environmental interests. Yeah, that hasn't stopped companies. I mean, I think it's Nestle, right? That is buying up water sources and bottling it, natural springs and such. Uh, there has to be another way. And I think that water should be brought to every human being, not something that should be traded as an asset. I don't know. I trade on the value add of bottling it, but not the water. Don't even think of water as something to be traded, bought and sold. It just seems twisted to me. Maybe it's just me. I haven't heard other people saying that I'm naive about that, but I'm sure somebody is. Maybe a longer discussion with somebody that says that is necessary. Help me figure out why water should be bought and sold as a concept of water, not as something bottled, let's say. It's a subtle but distinct concept here, right? Here's another paragraph. Yet water may finally be getting the attention it deserves. Beyond climate change, the accompanying droughts in some areas and floods in others, there's heightened awareness of water quality. Flint, Michigan's lead-contaminated drinking water is a prime example. Except that was a human-created problem. It was leaded pipes that, if the original water source would have been left alone, it wouldn't have been a problem. But when they changed to a new water source and ran it through that water, it was a different composition and leached the lead out into the water and contaminated every human being in Flint that drank from the faucets. And even then, it would have been an easier fix to reline. And there are solutions for this, right? Use the technology to make access to water easier and capitalize that, not the water itself. Crumbling U.S. water infrastructure may see long-term investing following the passage of last year's Infrastructure Act, with $55 billion of the $1.2 trillion earmarked for improving water supply. Great. That's great. Now let's address the reason why there's limited water. And there's myriad reason for that. Each state, each county has its own unique water problems. Let's continue on. The next article is in the Warcrafters channel. It says Valve will fill remaining Q1 Steam Deck orders just in time. If you were one of the lucky few people to have a Steam Deck reserved for Q1 and are still waiting for your precious handheld gaming PC, you're in luck. You should be receiving an email between today and next week to complete your order. And before you know it, you'll be bragging that you just installed Windows. Don't install Windows on it. And your favorite emulators on the Steam Deck. Just for being a real... They're calling people with the Steam Deck apparently deckheads. Anyway, don't be a deckhead about it. But congratulations on getting a Steam Deck. So I'm going to click this link. It'll take us over to PC Gamer. This article is written by George Jimenez. It says, double check those spam folders. Yeah, if you're getting spam and storing it in a spam folder, you're going to have to check it. I rarely get anything considered spam in a spam folder. It just gets blocked. I once ran a service that did exactly that. It actually blocked it before it ever left the sending spammers, or I should say the spammers sending server. And I'd love to bring that business back online. Yeah, that was some 30 years ago now. A tweet from the official Steam Deck Twitter account confirms that the last batch of Q1 Steam Deck reserves should be receiving their order emails within the next 2 weeks. So congratulations if you've ordered your Steam Deck. Yeah, anything attached to Steam is probably going to be a win. Now, get us wireless VR headsets, and I will be very, very happy. A very, very happy mayor. The next article is over in the Stock Marketeers channel. 2 ways the semiconductor shortage may play out. And it says here, secular trends and deflationary characteristics of tech will keep semiconductor companies booming. I agree. It's a MarketWatch article written by Daniel Newman, marketwatch.com. It's an opinion piece. Keep that in mind. So it's going to have its reference symbols like Qualcomm, AMD, NVIDIA. AMD and NVIDIA both went down, by the way. And that's interesting. I'm going to scroll down a little bit, and I'm really sorry if you are reading this. I don't typically display a whole article, but I'm trying to find where they mention. Interesting. Oh, why would they mention that? I don't see them reference it other than just being okay. Anyway, it says, depending on the severity and length of the recession coupled with the sustained demand for technology, it's hard to see this lasting long. A continued recessionary environment would most likely push the Fed to become more accommodative. The recent track record of policymakers indicates another stimulus could be pumped into the economy, again spinning up demand cycle for chips. Well, the problem with pumping more money into the system is you're going to end up with inflation, which is, again, a lot of money chasing too few products. So production is not the problem here. We could produce. This is a problem that goes further back. Something is pausing production to not meet demand. Why do we not have enough GPUs? Why do we not have enough chips? It is not because production is falling. You don't need humans for chip production until the last leg of it, and quality control engineers making sure that the chip processes are measuring up. But you can't tell me that there are that many out of work because they're ill subject matter experts on semiconductors that are reviewing the materials. That's just not what's happening. There's something else impacting this. But I can't find the cause of it. You look back further and further and you see rising costs from suppliers, but what is it that's putting all of the pause on production and delivery? Most of this stuff is, bulk once it hits the dock, and then it sits on a boat and comes over. And it's not like it takes, a ton of people. Nobody's rowing the boat across the ocean. When it hits another dock, it's again in bulk. So if it's drivers for trucks, address the issue. And this is why you're going to end up with automated driving from after the first mile to right before the last mile. You're going to end up with automated driving, automated trucks, because if people are sick and the industry can afford to pay for automated driving, it's going to go that route, and there's going to be a lot of jobs lost. So go over to the MarketWatch article and read this. 2 ways the semiconductor shortage may play out. And in a nutshell, it's either going to catch up or it's going to still remain stalled. There are cars that are being sold that won't have chips for up to a year because of this issue with not getting chips manufactured. But it says here, secular trends and the deflationary characteristics of tech will likely keep semiconductor companies booming. Not if they're not selling anything. What's happening is we're having shrinkflation, we're having inflation, we're having constrained manufacturing. Yet, and all of that combined is lowering what is purchasable, increasing the cost of what is purchasable, and artificially accelerating that cost rise because, again, manufacturing is constrained, and I think it's artificial. This next article is about Theranos. The word in tech is the channel that it was aggregated into. Sunny Balwani's Theranos trial delayed after possible COVID exposure. The trial of Ramesh Sunny Balwani, the former romantic and business partner of Elizabeth Holmes, was reportedly delayed on Wednesday after a possible COVID-19 exposure forced a judge to send a full courtroom home. 2 years plus into this, and we're still getting COVID exposures that are random. This is an article that was written by Guardian staff and agencies, but it was for Wednesday the 16th. We are 4 days past that, or actually 6 days now, right? And but my aggregator recently found this because of an edit, I believe. Ex-executive faces same charges as his former romantic and business partner in Silicon Valley scandal. And if you've never heard of Theranos, there is a lot online about it. You can do a search on YouTube and you'll find just a ton of stuff. It says here, Balwani, who's 57, denied the charges. The jury found Holmes guilty of investor fraud and conspiracy in January. She was acquitted on other counts, accusing her of duping patients who relied on Theranos' flawed blood tests. As far as I know, if I recall correctly, they didn't use the Theranos technology to actually provide those blood tests to patients, if I recall correctly. I'm not quite sure about that, but I believe that's true. Holmes, who's 38, is free on $500,000 bail while awaiting her sentencing in September, and that has stirred speculation that she might agree to testify against Balwani if prosecutors agree to recommend leniency in exchange for her cooperation, because she's facing up to 20 years. Yeah. It's kind of convoluted, and as the saying goes, don't dip your pen in the company ink. This had just hot mess written all over it. So if the technology was even physically possible, and by physically I mean the physics of doing a blood test array across just a few drops, it would have been an amazing piece of kit. But for all accounts, people have been saying it's impossible to do that much resultant output off of such little blood collected. The next article is over in the Daily News Show. 500 plus academics call for end to climate research funded by fossil fuel industry. It says, our universities must be climate leaders, not climate laggards, said one climate scientist. So I'm going to click this link. It'll take us over to Common Dreams. I kind of knew that it was going to be a Common Dreams article. The article is written by Andrea Germanos. And it says here, that means refusing to lend their reputations to fossil fuel industry greenwashing and ensuring the integrity of research that shapes public discourse and policy making on the urgently needed energy transition. So one thing that happens when I read research papers is they're supposed to disclose where the funding comes from. And sometimes, and this happens quite a bit when I'm reading something about food industry research. For whatever reason, if I get something that is just glowing about, let's say, steak, I go and I look and I find out that it's funded by the beef industry. And I kind of look askance at it like, why is this a glowing published paper about the meat industry, and it kind of flies in the face of some other research. And you can do searches yourself. I mean, this isn't coming out of a vacuum and hyperbolic that climate research funded by fossil fuel industry might be contaminated by the very money that's funding it. But I guess I should say, but for the ethics of the researchers, the source of the money shouldn't matter. If it wasn't for the propensity and at least the optics of impropriety, based on the source of the money, because for whatever reason, streamers, if you're a streamer and you get money from Razer, and suddenly your take on Razer is loud and clear and positive, yet before you were sitting there railing against how crappy the keyboard was, not saying that Razer is a crappy keyboard. I used to have Razer stuff all over, but that's the idea that this article is talking about. They want to remove the funding because it contaminates what the results might be, unless you have a very strong-willed researcher that's capable of saying, yeah, I'll take your money, but I'm also going to tell you that you're wrong. And that may rarely happen because universities, research schools in general, right? So research requires funding. Schools chase grants, like a greyhound, and they will race after it as fast and often as possible, because that's what powers research. And sometimes you end up in partnerships that might overwhelm your ability to resist. So good luck, but there is a lot of money in fossil fuels. So I suppose that's not really going to happen, because it's the industry, it's the academic sector that has to say no to that money. So this next article is in the Warcrafters channel. Stranger of Paradise, Final Fantasy Origins luscious hair is ruining the game. So it's been causing more chaos than protagonist Jack can reasonably kill. It's another classic Square Enix port, by which I mean it's filled with tiny technical hiccups and frustrating issues that make a game a total pain to play. But beyond the obvious hiccups, the game seems really poorly optimized. So this is an article over at PC Gamer. And it's that quote that I just said was written by Molly Taylor. And I guess hair generation is causing a problem. Yeah, let's see. As Twitter user at Akira JKR1, has discovered, hair and fur turned Stranger of Paradise into a PowerPoint presentation. An early character fur-trimmed coat alone managed to drop the game down to 25 frames with an RTX 3090. Another early cutscene with Dark Elf Astos, who's sporting a gorgeous layered hairdo, brings the whole thing down to a mere 8 frames per second. With a follow-up video shows the whole crew with a buzz cut and a far smoother average of 30 frames. Still, 30 frames on a 3090? That's bananas. So go over to PC Gamer and read the rest of the article on your own. Come back and you can holler at me about it. The next article is over in Breaking Prose, which is about writing. This one was recently fired back up. So it might be playing catch up with some of the news. Pro Writing is supporting Close the Gap Foundation in 2022. This article contains all of the information you need on their work and how to get involved. I'm going to click the link. I have no relationship with Pro Writing Aid or Close the Gap Foundation. But I thought it would be interesting to include in the daily news show so that I can draw some attention to it. but it says that it was published in in February 27th. So I'm not sure if it is still going at this point, but regardless, you can still investigate. Close the Gap Foundation. They're a nonprofit organization based in California, co-founded by Ty Tran and Jesse Salas, who are both first-generation and low-income graduates. And the objective is for first-generation English speakers and learners, writing can be a real challenge, but access to Pro Writing Aid's grammar checker can make a positive difference. That's why they're providing all of this year's aspiring fellows with a free year of Pro Writing Aid premium membership, and supporting the Close the Gap Foundation Social Impact Fellowship Program. So go and check it out. And you can read more over at Pro Writing Aid. Oh, pardon me. ProWritingAid.com. And again, this article is written by Millie Dinsdale. Okay, let's continue on. The next article is researchers store a quantum bit for a record-breaking 20 milliseconds. Computer, smartphones, GPS. Quantum physics has enabled many technological advances. It is now opening up new fields of research in cryptography, the art of coding messages, with the aim of developing ultra-secure telecommunication networks. Yeah, and this will actually be a problem in the future, depending on implementations. A quantum computer that creates encryption can equally decrypt. There's one obstacle, however. After a few hundred kilometers within an optical fiber, the photons that carry the qubits or quantum bits disappear. They therefore need repeaters, a kind of relay, which is partly based on quantum memory. By managing to store a qubit in a crystal for 20 milliseconds, a team at the University of Geneva has set a world record and taken a major step towards the development. So this is an article over at phys.org, written by the University of Geneva. Developed during the 20th century, quantum physics has enabled scientists to describe the behavior of atoms and particles, as well as certain properties of electromagnetic radiation. By breaking with classical physics, these theories generated a real revolution and introduced notions without equivalent in the macroscopic world, such as superposition, which describes the possibility for a particle to be in several places at once, or entanglement, which describes the ability of two particles to affect each other instantaneously, even at distance. And the quote is spooky action at a distance. This is something that has been written, I think it was Einstein that wrote that. Forgive me if I don't know exactly. It's been a while since I even thought about that sentence. Interesting thing about that entanglement part of it is the distance by which the two particles have been entangled has been expanding further and further. And if I remember right, let me see something real quick. So let's see. Yeah, so scientists have demonstrated quantum entanglement on a tiny satellite orbiting Earth. So they successfully demonstrated on a CubeSat satellite, and I think one was here and one was up there. Yeah, one was on the surface and one was up. So this whole entanglement thing is really, to me, it is quite spooky. And I just find it really fascinating. Maybe it will be the one thing that allows us to travel through time, right? The only reason why I brought that up in any way is because I actually am really fascinated by the concept of time travel. and both in the scientific understanding of time and in the sci-fi perspective. I even have a show that I want to launch called Temporology, which is the study of time and time travel. But let's continue on to the next article. You can go over to phys.org and do a search for researchers store a quantum bit for a record-breaking 20 milliseconds. This next article is how The Witcher became a gaming smash hit. It's over in the Word in Tech channel. It'll take us over to The Guardian. In this week's newsletter, it says, there's another installment of CD Projekt Red's fantasy behemoth on the way, and it's sure to have some bite. Time to play catch up. This article is written by Kiza McDonald. And says, if you've never had the pleasure, The Witcher stars a grizzled and fairly indifferent white-haired monster hunter called Geralt. He is an outcast, a sword for hire, who's lived a long and interesting life, more of an anti-hero than your traditional wide-eyed, world-saving, naif fantasy protagonist. Geralt doesn't have the power to save the world The Witcher drops you into. It is a world at the mercy of idiot kings and their wars, drunk nobles, criminals, both petty and organized, and a whole menagerie of aggressive creatures that happily rip peasants apart. If you've never played a Witcher game, and I've tried it, I prefer watching people play games. It's just kind of like my version of the NFL. It's more fun to me to watch and engage in discussion with the community. That said, I love playing certain games. The Witcher, though, is just not my bag. Let's see here. It says the next Witcher game will be the fourth. Polish developer CD Projekt Red's history with The Witcher began in around the late 90s when it bought the rights to, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, Andrei Sapkowski's fantasy novels, which I think is amazing that a company would buy that and convert it into a game. I mean, talk about seeing the writing on the wall. The 73-year-old writer remains famously uninterested in the video games that bear his creation's name, by the way, and seems quite annoyed that he doesn't profit from them. Yeah, I remember reading about that. But for all accounts, The Witcher is a great game, and people really get into it. So go toss a coin to your Witcher and play the previous games. The next two articles, let me go like that. So the next article is in the Hatch Ideas channel. Apple back online after outage hits nearly a dozen services. I'm going to click this link just to get right into it. So this is a Guardian article, theguardian.com. It's written by Reuters, but published on the Guardian site. Apple back online after outage hits nearly a dozen services. Services including App Store, Apple TV, Apple Music resume after outage, and Apple has yet to confirm what the problems were. Oh no. Oh wow. So I actually had been wondering if this was a problem with just me, but apparently this happened really late last night, and I had been dropped offline. A lot of my stuff that I do is kind of powered by it, and everything went offline and didn't recover until I manually recovered or like restarted processes. So it was kind of disturbing. The next article is in the continuity report. Apple Podcasts to launch follower metrics for creators, stepping up challenge to Spotify. Apple is adding new tools for podcasters to track audience trends, as well as boosting support for podcast subscriptions, among other features aimed at letting creators manage their podcast businesses on Apple Podcasts. This takes us over to Variety.com. It's written by Todd Spangler. Now, so I have a podcast. One of the most problematic things for any podcaster is really storage of the podcast, not metrics. It's great to know, but the metrics, it would be great to not have to house the podcast separate from the website. You can on the same website, but when you're processing everything on the website, it's a burden on that site, so it can slow it down. Yeah, you can throw more money at it and you can throw more resources at it. But I think Apple would do podcasters a great thing to allow us to store it within the podcast framework. And that's just not how it is right now. As far as I know, if somebody knows a secret to this, feel free to let me know. But I'm using a third-party service to house my podcasts, and then it's linked to ohmTown.com and displayed on a page. But it's, while I really like the interface, it makes publishing a whole lot easier, by the way, other than what I used formerly. But I'm now using Captivate.fm if you are so interested for housing my audio podcast. Which I'm slowly migrating over. I had just started publishing on the podcast side, but I now have 81 episodes to move over, and I never really had a lot on the Apple side to begin with, but that is changing. But with this, getting metrics, follower metrics, and engagement, it's great and all, but I would like a more seamless interaction with Apple Podcasts, storing that data in a place that is kind of like a one-stop shop for the podcast, metrics and everything else. That would be great, but Captivate is now doing all of it, including analytics and ad stuff. Like I can put ads, pre-roll and post-roll, even mid-roll ads in my podcasts using Captivate. So either they're going to do it right or and start offering storage. And even then, I think I'm just going to stay with Captivate. I mean, so far it's doing a bang-up job, but I don't have a lot of subscribers. So go over to the iTunes account and start streaming and following and downloading the ohmTown podcast. Right now, it consists of the daily news show, but I am planning still on expanding it. I've got 4 or 5 more like on deck ready to go, but I have to cut some strings to actually make this happen. So let me know that you find this of value. And that is the last article and my last kind of ask for this. But like always, you can go over to ohmTown.com and you click on the front page and it will refresh and throw a whole bunch of articles in there. Again, I've activated some new aggregation. It's focused on certain things, and so you might see a lot of news coming in. Not normally historical, but it's sometimes quite expansive. So go and check it out. Go over to ohmTown.com. And with that, I'm done for the day, and I'll see you tomorrow, 6 p.m. Thanks for coming by ohmTown.